Welcome to the Double D Trailers podcast. Today we're discussing the topic of staying legal while towing a horse trailer. And, the first thing to take into account on that is the difference between personal use versus commercial trailer hauling. And it's basically, if it's personal, you're not getting paid, right? So you're hauling to horse shows or trail rides. Maybe you're moving your horses between stables. Heck, I don't know. Maybe you just want to take your horses for a ride in your new trailer. But if you're not getting paid for it, then it's generally considered for personal use. Whereas commercial hauling is going to involve, transporting horses as part of a business operation, such as racing stables or horse transport companies, boarding, training facilities. And, if you're receiving compensation, you're hauling commercially. And the license requirement, depending on what type, when I say license, I'm talking about your driver's license in your pocket. So if you get stopped by DMV, they say, hand me your license and registration. This is what I'm talking about. That's going to vary state by state. And, it will be determined whether it's personal or commercial. I think probably 95% of the folks out there that are listening to this podcast more than likely are personal. So that's what we will focus on. And we'll hit a few highlight on the topics and not get too deep into this because it can get complicated. Vehicle and trailer inspections. So that's going to be state specific. The requirement for trailer inspections, it does vary. So some states are going to require an annual inspection. Our wonderful motor vehicle department, they want to make sure that they get some money from you every year. And then it does just sort of, lights a fire underneath us as trailer owners to make sure that, the tires are at least looked at once a year, the brakes and the bearings and the lights, the emergency breakaway system, look underneath the frame and make sure that there's not any structural cracks or anything like that. So although that, having to get an annual inspection may be a little bit of an inconvenience, it certainly increases or improves the safety of the load being hauled. Now, some states will offer a permanent license plate. Some states have inspection exemptions. I'm in North Carolina. North Carolina does offer a permanent plate for trailers. And, oftentimes you can get exemption on that. But check your state requirement. Contact your motor vehicle department. They'll be a great resource and can tell you, I say they can tell you. Oftentimes when I speak to DNV, if I talk to three different people, I get three different answers. So you'll definitely have to dive in and just make sure that you do get the correct information there. Towing and speed regulations, and normally, that's just going to be the posted speed limit. Sometimes it may have a different speed and it would be specified otherwise for vehicles towing trailers. So definitely pay attention to that. I think that's more, I've seen that out west maybe. And, towing a trailer, it can significantly impact vehicle handling, your braking distances, your acceleration, just a lot of things to take into account. And then one more thing to keep in mind, and this is something we rarely talk about, the max speed limit that's posted on a trailer tire. So most trailer tires, and we've discussed this in depth on other podcasts, so I won't get too deep into it, but most trailer tires are an ST rated, which means special trailer. And for many years, as long as I can remember, they were rated at a max speed of 65 miles per hour. I think that a lot now are in the 70 and 75 mile per hour rating. So, that sounds pretty fast, but if you're driving up and down Interstate 95 on the East Coast, traffic just goes crazy there. So just make sure that you're not grossly exceeding the speed that the tire is rated for. If you're in mountainous conditions, so, just take extra care when navigating those steep inclines, the declines, the winding roads. I mean, some of this stuff, guys, seems like common sense, but unfortunately, we see accidents continue to happen. So it is crucial to adjust speed accordingly and stay off the brake. I mean, if you're going down steep mountains, just slow down, get your load slowed down, and use the gears on the tow vehicle. Let the engine and the drivetrain do the majority of your braking. And, don't put your foot on the brake and just drag the thing. Just hold the brake as you're going down the mountain. You're using the trailer brakes because you're just going to overheat, possibly crystallize something. That's why you see these mounds of dirt. If you've ever traveled through the mountains, particularly North Carolina, Tennessee, I see it a lot. Interstate 40, there'll be a runaway truck ramp, really designed for 18-wheelers. I've seen some trucks, go through that before, and it's quite an experience. But it serves the purpose, and it's basically for a big truck that's going down the mountains, that's cooked their brakes, and they can't get the thing to slow down, so they have to sort of dive off to the side. So we don't want that to happen with the tow vehicle. So just slow down and run it in a really low gear. Your engine's probably going to be revving really high. Just don't exceed the red line on the RPM. But otherwise, it's just fine. It's much better than damaging the brakes. Now, when you're traveling, we talked about Interstate 95 and Interstate 40, right? Do you have to stop at a weigh station? And, I think that will vary from state to state, and often, the GVWR and things like that. But the majority of the time, if you are hauling for personal use, you really, you don't have to stop. Now, if the sign says vehicles with trailers or with livestock in particular, I've seen that before, it's like an agricultural stop. You should probably pull in because, in this case, they may want to inspect the horses. And if you don't stop, they can pursue you and bring you back. With that said, I mean, I'm 50 years old. I've been hauling trailers my entire life, and I have never stopped at a scale. There hasn't been one that I've gone by that I felt like, was required for me to do. And I've never had any issue. But certainly, if you're supposed to stop and you don't, and it largely just sort of depends on the officer, you may see the blue lights coming after you, and he or she will talk so smack to you and say, "Hey, why didn't you stop back there?" So you could get a fine for that and be held for a period of time, which will certainly be inconvenient. So just double check, where you're going through. If in doubt, there's always nothing wrong with pulling over and going through that weigh station. More than likely, they'll be so busy with the 18-wheelers. That's generally what they're focused on. And the commercial trucks, they'll probably just wave you through. You don't even have to stop. Now, when we're talking about, practical tips for safe legal towing, we have gone into the topic of tow vehicles and GVWR and GAWR and just lots of terminology. So definitely check that out on other podcasts and some articles we have on our site. But you just want to make sure that the tow vehicle is capable of handling the weight and the type of trailer being towed. So you have to check the vehicle's towing capacity, the hitch type, the hitch capacity, the electrical connections. Make sure the trailer is wired to fit the same configuration as the tow vehicle and vice versa. And then, of course, the regular maintenance. We touched on that for the annual inspection. If you're in a state that doesn't require annual inspection, I tell you, I always recommend, taking your trailer in every single year, just to have to a qualified trailer repair shop. And, that can be a company that sells cargo trailers or flatbeds, or RVs are a great source because, all of these are towable vehicles that have brakes and tires and wheels and axles and lights and all of that. So it's pretty common just to use a qualified repair person. We had a client recently that purchased a trailer, I think 2 years ago. I'm not sure of the exact time period, but they said that they hadn't used it. They only put like 500 miles on the thing. And a couple years later, or 3 years later, ever how long the time has been, they're ready to make a trip. And so the husband, actually pulls the wheel and the hub off to inspect things, and finds out that the inside of the bearing is actually frozen to the shaft and there's grease all over everything. I think what happened is they made a short trip and figured out the brakes on the trailer were not working. And once they pulled the wheels off, it was just a big mess. And what happened is the thing just sat, and they didn't maintain it, they didn't use it. And of course, the elements of the earth, the temperature and moisture in the atmosphere, it can cause things to corrode. And that's exactly what happened in this case. So unfortunately, there was a decent repair bill to fix all of that stuff, some downtime and maintenance, whereas just a little bit of preventive maintenance would have gone a long ways on that. Now, when we're talking about finding the right info for your state, DMV, Department of Motor Vehicle, that's always a good resource. In North Carolina, we used to have a license agency, and then a motor vehicle division that focused on big trucks and 18-wheelers and things like that. Today, most of those agencies are grouped into one as far as the way they operate and underneath the same umbrella, but they're still segregated. So just talk to the folks that knows those regulations. If it's just the driver's license agency where you go to have your license and things like that renewed, they may not be the best resource for that, because they're more focused on titling and what type of license do you need on your tow vehicle and things like that. You could reach out to the State Transportation Department, the State Highway Patrol, the police. There's also Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, that's FMCSA. And particularly if you're in commercial hauling, they're going to be a good resource for federal regulation and guideline that may affect that interstate towing and commercial operation. Local towing and trailer dealerships, we talked about that. Use those guys as a resource. I mean, whether it's an RV or a horse trailer company or what have you, most of the trailer sales folks will do title work. And so they're very familiar with the particular state that their business is in and what type of license that may be required. The 10,001 pound mark is sort of as far as the GVWR. Now, that's not weight. When we're talking tow vehicles, we really want to focus on the weight of the trailer with the cargo being hauled. When we're talking about licensing requirements, in other words, the license that you must present the officer if you get stopped, that's often related to GVWR, sort of the rating of what the capabilities of the trailer or the tow vehicle are. And in most states, if it's less than 10,000 pounds, so 10,000 or under as far as the GVWR, generally I call it a regular driver's license, nothing extra is needed. If it's 10,001 pounds or greater on that GVWR, then often a Class A license is required, or some states will call that a commercial driver's license. So you really have to read. I mean, we are often researching on the state DMV websites across the country, and just make sure that you read that. We were having a conversation with a client the other day, and I can't remember which state it was, but they were asking about CDL. I think it was California. And my understanding, anything over a 10,001 pound in California requires that commercial license on the trailers. So that's generally the way that we've seen that go. But this particular client found something on their website that mentioned, travel trailers being exempt from that and for personal use. And this was a horse trailer with a living quarter. But the website specifically states livestock trailers, you must have, the rule applies to that. So Yeah, I mean, if you get stopped, you got a horse trailer with living quarters, maybe you can argue with the officer that it's a travel trailer and not a livestock trailer. But if it's designed to haul animals in the back, I think they're going to consider that livestock. So you probably would get a ticket. So I wouldn't attempt it because the tickets are much more expensive than what the license would be to just go ahead and get it done. And then finally, just reach out to a local ag extension office. Oftentimes, those guys can be a great resource and guidance on transporting livestock and using agricultural vehicles and trailers, because there are a lot of exemptions for ag vehicles and trailers. I think in Texas, don't quote me on it, but there is a livestock exemption in Texas. We've had some folks that, they'll go to DMV and say, hey, I'm hauling livestock, aka horses, and I should be exempt. And they've given them, an exemption number or certificate, and it allowed the client to purchase the trailer without having to pay. And when I say exempt, it was sales tax exempt. So they paid like a license and registration fee, but were exempted out of, of the sales tax. So that's a big deal. So check your state, find out if they have an exemption that may apply to you.